Hi, my name is Stacy Kingery, and I'm going to be reviewing with you some math supports for helping your student learn numbers 0 to 9. So let's get started. Struggling with learning numbers, there are many helpful ways to teach numbers. Do not overwhelm your child by teaching multiple strategies at first. I know this is really easy to do because if they don't gravitate or grasp one concept right away, it's really easy to want to start another concept. I really discourage that. I would say stick with one strategy or method for at least 4 to 6 weeks before changing to a new strategy. That'll give your student enough time to really grasp that concept before overwhelming them in learning another one. Just remember, what works for one does not work for all, and struggling learners do best with repetition, regardless of your chosen strategy. So I put this in here because a lot of times you might be getting bored with the strategy. You might be getting bored with repeating yourself every day or every lesson that you're teaching. But just remember, this is really important for learners. I always say, think of when you first start a job and all this information is thrown at you at one time. That's really what we're asking our students to do every day. So even though their brains are geared towards learning, it's still really important that we realize that they need to take time to be able to grasp concepts. And the best way to do that is with repetition. Okay. So the first strategy I'd like to teach or demonstrate is TouchMath, also known as touch points. Touch points are one of my most favorite strategies to use, and this tool will help students as they start adding and subtracting. The program is described as math for all senses, and you'll understand why starting in the next slide. Students are taught how to draw and use touch points when they are counting. Each number 1 to 9 has a certain amount of corresponding points that help each child count without using their fingers or manipulatives. This means that you can teach this strategy, and regardless of where the student is, if they have a need to add, subtract, or identify a number, they're capable of doing that without having tools with them. When adding or subtracting, children will count forward and backward as they touch each dot, and I will demonstrate that in a couple slides. So the first one is students need to understand the correspondence of the name of the number and the actual counted objects that get paired with that number. So you can see the 0 has no dots because there is no value to it. Then the number 1 has 1 dot, number 2, 2 dots, and so on. And then once you get to a number 6, you will see there's got a dot, and then it's got a circle around that dot. And then we tap 2 times for those dots. So you'll see, like with number 7, you're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I encourage them to tap on those dots. So let's see how this would look when we're adding. So for a while, I encourage you to have some kind of a guide for students as they are continuing to learn their numbers and the order in which numbers appear. So what I like to do is say, we're going to grab that first number, and then we're going to grab the 5, 6, 7. And then we'd write a 7 here. For the next one, we're going to grab that 0, and then we're going to add 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The whole idea with that grab is we want to include all of their senses, movement, anything that we can pair with a resource when we're teaching really helps their brains to weld these concepts. So it's really important that they know what they're supposed to do whenever they see some number to add or subtract. Okay, so we're going to grab the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, and subtracting is very similar. We're going to grab that 14, and then we're going to count backwards. 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. So it really does help while students are first learning their numbers if you do provide a number line or a number chart for them, so that way that they are able to count forward and backwards. But once they figure that concept out, then this is going to come quite easy to them. It is kind of tricky when they are first learning their numbers, so I would not do addition or subtraction until they've got at least 0 to 10 mastered. Okay, grab that number 12, and then we're going to count backwards. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Okay, so let's look at the next strategy. The next one is a number line. You can use a number line that just goes one direction for beginning learners, or if you are going to do a strategy that is doing, or if you're going to be teaching both negative and positive numbers, I really encourage you to use a chart that has 2 different colors, so that way they can see very clearly that variation. So let's see how this would work. So we're going to do 5 plus 2. So we're going to circle the number 5, and we're going to hop 2. 1, 2. There's 2 different things that I struggle with this, teaching this strategy. One is that they always will need to have a number line with them. So they're pretty dependent on these. And then when the numbers get quite large for adding and subtracting, that can become really a challenge for them. So just keep that in mind. The other thing is, you will notice, like when we circled that number 5, the 5 that we're adding, or the 5 plus 2, we're going to circle the 5, and then we're going to hop 2. 1, but look at here underneath it. We're saying 1, but they're looking at a number 6. So this is a strategy that does work well for many students, but just keep in mind, this may not be the best strategy to start with, okay? And we're also going to do, so we'll demonstrate one more, okay? 1 plus 4, we're going to circle that number 1, and we're going to hop 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, the answer is 5. Same thing with subtraction. 8 minus 4, we're going to circle that number 4, and then we're going to hop backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and of course, that answer is 4. So the best way to use these number lines is laminate them and then do the whiteboard markers, or have students use their finger, but make sure they're circling that number with their finger and then doing the hopping. Okay, so we are going to go on to the next slide. Manipulatives. A lot of people like using manipulatives, and I do understand why. Again, it's that sensory piece. I would caution you with a couple different things. One, these are tools for learning and not toys. And oftentimes students will confuse the two and want to use the tools for toys rather than learning. The other thing is, it's really difficult when a student learns using manipulatives and then they're out and need to add or subtract or identify numbers, and they don't have their manipulative with them. It can be very difficult as well. So it's a very helpful tool for certain learners. Just keep in mind it's not for all learners. So let's take a look at what type of manipulatives we have and what is a manipulative. So manipulatives help students learn by allowing them to move from concrete to experiences to abstract reasoning. So some of the manipulatives that are shown in this picture are colored tiles, counting circles, colored counters. It's just a variety of different counters. Counting bears, which are pretty popular, counting sticks, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, and then cubes. Cubes are typically for students who need larger objects to hold and are for lower addition and subtraction. So let's take a look at each of these and how they're used. So the first one that we're going to be working on is number correspondence, which is the ability to pair an object counted to a number word. So you're going to see over here, this picture card has got 6 bears on it. So when we start learning, oftentimes you're going to see that you are going to actually be putting the bears on top of the picture card, and then they will be adding 1, 2, 3, and then they're going to write that number 3 in there. The next concept will be where they do not need the physical bears, where they can touch the bears. But again, oftentimes students get confused as to where they started and ended off. And so they might double count or skip a bear. And so I always have like them laminated and do a cross off or a circle or something so that way they can remember which bear they counted, and then they would circle it. Or in this case, they're actually using clothespins, and the clothespin would go right underneath whatever line or number it is, and so that way you can reuse that card. Same thing over here. You would have them touch the bear or cross off the bear, and then have them demonstrate by circling or identifying which number matches the number of bear objects. You can also use manipulatives to start adding. So when you do this, I like to say, okay, we have how many bears? So we have 5 bears in green, so you have 5. How many bears are we adding? Well, they're going to count those other 5 bears and put the 5 in here. And then how many bears all together? And then they count all the bears together, and here you can see is a number 10. This is great for 2 different things. When you color differentiate, they can identify the color and attach it to a number. And the other thing that is really important is that they are, what was I going to say? Oh, you can get ready for reading word problems, right? Because we're saying 5 bears plus 5 bears. How many bears all together? And so that is a great strategy to help hear the that terminology at an early age. So, excuse me. Okay, we're going to start with strawberries now. Same type of thing, but without the physical bears. So that would be the next step. They're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're going to put that 6 in there. And then we're going to have 1, 2, 3. Put that 3 there. And then how many all together? And they're going to add that up, and you're going to write the total right here. So, and they do not need to put any kind of number or manipulative picture up here unless they choose to. Okay, that's up to them. But again, we're just trying to make it from the physical objects to just on paper, and then eventually it's going to just come into their head or into their minds. So you can, of course, use manipulatives for subtraction too. If it's on paper, you're going to see a lot of times they're going to have something that looks like this. It'll say 5 minus 4. I often would start with having the student grab 5 counting bears, and then you can see that there's 4 crossed out, and so I'm going to ask them to take 4 bears away, and how many bears do they have left? And then they'd put the number left here. This is the same thing. They have to get 7 bears. They're not going to take any bears away. How many bears do you have left? Same type of concept. This would be a key card, and then the student would use physical bears for subtraction. Over here, you're going to see the next step with subtracting. So we are not going to have the number bears or the counting bears. Instead, they're just going to have what the object is on paper. And just like we did with the last page, we're going to see there is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I always ask the students to count the circles to make sure it matches that first number. And then we're going to have them take away or subtract 3. So then they're going to count backwards. We're just going to cross out 1, 2, 3, and how many circles do we have left? So that's how I use this strategy. 10s and 1 sticks. This is for higher level thinking math, but yet you need to have some kind of visual or manipulative to help teach them. It's really important that students understand the 1s, 10s, hundreds, and thousands position when they are learning with these objects. So you will see that they have singles, and those are we have 5 1s, and then each of these are 10 of the 1s welded together. And so when they see these sticks, they know how many 10s do we have. These are 10 glued together, so we're going to say we have 2 10s, so that you can see that there are 25. So this will really start helping when they start borrowing and subtracting numbers. And this is an easier skill to have a physical object to demonstrate and learn this skill but then once they've mastered the skill, it's okay to go ahead and take those tools away, these manipulatives away, because they grasp the concepts. Okay. Same thing with these. You'll see these are the ones, tens. This is 10 tens on their flat. And then this is the hundreds. So you have, a thousand. So this is a hundreds square, and this is 1,000 block. If you really want to count all those little dots, you're welcome to, but I can promise you that this is 100 and this is 1,000. Okay, I hope that this beginning video will help you at least get started on teaching your kiddos basic math concepts.